All right. Well, this is Blair Durham from Bart Durham Injury Law. We asked you guys to submit some personal injury questions and appreciate all those that did. Welcome to Facebook Live, and especially we welcome Julie from Cozumel, who's on her honeymoon and should be enjoying herself instead of watching this. So let me jump into the questions. We're going to try to answer them all. The first question was, what's the difference between punitive and compensatory damages, and how does someone get them? I'll start with punitive damages. There was a case, BMW versus Gore, that happened a long time ago, where essentially BMW had some cars that got banged up in transport and just repainted them and didn't disclose. So punitive damages in that case is where they first started, are designed to punish for a societal wrongdoing. In car wreck cases, we most often see punitive damages where a drunk driver or a driver who's on drugs hits you, and they're allowed in those cases. It's actually kind of a separate trial. At the end of a regular trial, you put on your punitive damages, and they are designed to punish. The law says that they have to be sort of in line with what the regular damages or compensatory damages are. They can't be so much greater than the regular damages, but they're there, and they're designed to punish wrongdoers who essentially create societal ills by their behavior and reckless conduct. Compensatory damages, and especially in car wreck or personal injury cases, are damages for things such as medical expenses, lost wages, pain and suffering, loss of enjoyment of life, loss of ability to earn money in the future. All of those fall into what's compensatory damages, and those are broken apart a little bit by what is called economic and non-economic. And economic damages are essentially things that you can actually use a calculator to configure. And so medical expenses are the most common. Lost wages, where you take tax returns from previous years or get letters from employers, you can actually put a number there. Non-economic damages, unfortunately, in the state of Tennessee are currently capped. And so things like pain and suffering, loss of enjoyment of life, loss of consortium, which means loss of family relationship, are capped no matter what in Tennessee, either at $750,000 or $1 million. And the only way to get $1 million are cases where, let's say, a tractor trailer hits a car and the person is burnt to a crisp but survives. If you have third-degree burns over 60% of your body, your pain and suffering and non-economic damages are capped at $1 million. If you have third-degree burns over 25% of your body, you're capped at $750,000, which is a bummer. There are currently cases going on to challenge the constitutionality of those caps, and in other states those caps have been overturned because they are unconstitutional, but we're not there yet in the state of Tennessee. All right, let's see. A lot of these questions were similar, so we're kind of going to summarize them. If I get in a car wreck and it's someone else's fault, how long do I have to call you? Unfortunately, we deal with issues frequently in our office where people wait too late after a wreck to give us a call. Tennessee is a very difficult place to be hurt in a car wreck and get adequate representation. We have the shortest statute of limitations, which is just the legal term for how long you have post-wreck to bring a case, and it's 1 year. In some ways, that's good because it pushes the case a little faster than it would in other states. Florida, for example, is 3 years. Georgia is similar. Some states are 6 years. But more importantly than the statute of limitations, you need to contact a lawyer if you've been in a car wreck immediately after it happens. There are a lot of evidence issues that come up that, 4 months down the road, if a truck hits you and you haven't hired a lawyer, that truck's back on the road. It's going to be put back in service. And there are things, for example, in automobiles, if you airbag deploys, there's an airbag chip in your car, and we can download it to prove that you weren't speeding, to talk about what was going on with your car at the time of the impact. And the same with tractor trailers. There's a data chip inside tractor trailers that records everything from engine revs to their speed, to braking, and all of those things spoil over time. So you need to definitely contact someone right away, even if it's not a tractor trailer, because we would like to download the other car's airbag to see how fast they were going. We hire experts frequently to go to scenes and map it out, and Your cars make gouges in the road that are important to recreate how an accident happened. And over time, those things fade away, or other wrecks happen in the same area. So you just don't know if that's your wreck or not. So I can't stress enough how important it is, whether it's me or someone else that does this for a living. If you get in a crash, contact a lawyer. Good question about how does a recall and the lawsuits around them work. And they're not all exactly the same. In drug cases, for example, most drugs, the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, will issue what's called a black box warning. And what that means is that frequently drug companies will rush a product to market because when they introduce a new drug, there's a patent that they have, and they only have that patent for a certain amount of time, and then every other drug company can make competing drugs, so the generics and all those other things for them. So what happens is, because they want to maximize profits, drug companies will not do all the testing that they actually report to the FDA, not report all the side effects. My kids always make fun of drug commercials because if you have hepatitis C, take this drug. It very well may kill you, but your hepatitis C is going to be fine. They have to list all those side effects, and those come from what are called clinical trials. Well, when a high enough number of injury occurs in a drug case, the FDA gets involved, black boxes the drug, saying, there's a warning. We need to look into how many clinical trials they actually did. And generally, those cases become class actions. Not always. We recently had the epidemic steroid injections that gave people a lot of meningitis, and many of those were individual cases. The talcum powder case that's going on, they're being individually tried in Missouri, and there have been some really big verdict numbers. So it's hard to categorize all recalls as the same because they take on different life depending on what type of case it is. Drugs are different than, say, a product. Samsung front-loading washing machines got recalled because the lids, the vibrations were so severe, the lids would actually pop off and someone was killed and other people have been injured. So those recalls, voluntary versus involuntary matters too. They'll actually give you a rebate or repair your washing machine. Usually, if it is a class action, those cases take longer than individual cases. A lot of times, for example, in the talcum powder case, Johnson & Johnson, there's a lot of science involved in those in drug cases of proving that a drug or talcum powder actually causes harm. In the talcum powder case, there's a doctor from Harvard that linked the talc to the cancer, ovarian cancer primarily in women. So those cases can take years, but car wreck cases generally do not take that long, which I'll get to in a sec. That's the next question. How long does a case take, and when will I get my check? Horrible lawyer answer, but it really does depend. But I'll give you the best general information on that I can. It's a hurry up and wait game, and the wait part comes where we need to wait until you're done treating. At some point, a medical doctor is going to release you, excuse me, and say that you're at maximum medical improvement, or you're always going to be hurt, but they can actually quantify a permanent impairment rating or something to let us know, as well as insurance companies know, what your damages both now and in the future are going to be. So that's a waiting game. From the moment you get released, or we can see what your future is going to hold, we hurry up. We get all the medical bills and records, and our office averages, and again, we have 700 some odd cases, so it's an average of 8 months from the time you're released from the doctor until you actually have a check in your hand from us and from the insurance company. Sometimes that's a lot quicker. Unfortunately, the state insurance limits in our state are, the minimum is $25,000. Well, if you're in a serious wreck and you spend one day at Vanderbilt, you're going to have at least $25,000 in medical bills. A surgery, you're looking at 50 to 80. Well, those cases, unless there are assets from the person who hit you, are going to settle rather quickly because you've already, quote, broken the bank on what the insurance limits are. That same case, if you get hit by someone that has $250,000, there's more argument to be had, and so they take a little bit longer. Okay. An insurance company called me asking questions about my wreck. What should I say and do? Not all insurance companies are created equal. If any of you out there watching this have Allstate insurance, you need to get rid of it immediately. Allstate treats their insured worse than anyone else. If you get in a wreck with someone who doesn't have insurance and you have Allstate, you have uninsured motorists, they will treat you like it's your fault. There are other insurance companies out there that aren't that way and that try to treat their insureds fairly. But if an insurance company person calls you about a wreck, you should not tell them anything. Generally, insurance companies do not have a pulse or a heartbeat, and they are doing their best to minimize what it is that they pay out. Mark Twain once said, having insurance is like handing someone an umbrella when it's sunny outside, and when it starts to rain, taking the umbrella back. The last question we have is, how often do cases go to court? So we have roughly 700 to 800 cases at any one time. And of those cases, I usually go to trial, or someone in my office does, about 3 times a year. So that gives you a good indication. Many years ago, probably 15 to 20 now, there was a push to mediate cases. And a mediation is generally a retired judge or a lawyer that's been had a lot of experience in trials will set as a neutral third-party person to try to work with both the defense and the injured person to try to get a case resolved. And they're usually successful. 90+% of the time, cases settle at mediation. The injured person has control at that moment. A jury's not forcing their opinion down their throat. And they get to make an informed decision that their lawyer's there, the defense insurance company adjuster's there. Everyone's working that one day to try to get a case resolved. And the vast majority of cases get settled either in mediation or without trial. So we hope Julie's not still on with us. Hopefully she's enjoying Cozumel and all the many things and does not get food poisoning or Montezuma's revenge. Thanks so much.